Okay, I just finished watching Monday Night Raw for January 23rd, 2012. They were in Phoenix, Arizona, and pretty good show. This was the Royal Rumble Go Home show. They tried to get everything set up for the Rumble. Had some good wrestling on the show. And basically, it starts off with CM Punk comes out. He says Dolph Ziggler has beat him 3 times in the past month, but it's always because Laurinaitis has helped him. He's hand wrapped these victories. He basically rants on Laurinaitis for a while, says he's a failure, he sucks at life. They show some footage of Laurinaitis saying he's going to screw Punk at the Rumble, him hitting Mick Foley with the microphone. And Punk says, I know you're going to screw me. That's fine. The only way I can guarantee that I won't get screwed is if I break your arms. So, CM Punk goes and he calls out John Laurinaitis. Well, he never shows up, so Punk says, well, I'm just going to go to you then. But all of a sudden, John Cena's music hits and he comes out instead. And he is pissed. He's really mad. It's funny that John Cena only gets mad when his buddy Zack Ryder has been screwed or hurt or something like that. Like if John Cena loses the title at a pay-per-view, or he's screwed, or he's jumped or and attacked, anything happens to him, he doesn't care. He's all smiles the next week. But all of a sudden you mess with his buddy Zack Ryder and man, is he pissed off. So he comes out and he tells Punk he's tired of his rambling, he's here for business, and calls out Laurinaitis, says you're going to give me a match with Kane tonight, and I'm going to wrestle him at the Rumble, and you're also going to give Zack Ryder a rematch for the U.S. title. Laurinaitis comes out and says, I'm not intimidated by you guys. I don't regret what I did last week hitting Foley and saying I'm going to screw Punk. And he says that Zack Ryder is medically cleared, so he will be in a match tonight against Kane in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And if John Cena interferes in this match at all, then Zack Ryder will never get a shot at the U.S. title again. So Laurinaitis is basically trying to kill Zack Ryder off. He just wants him eliminated. I mean, he's putting him in a dangerous match with Kane where Cena can't help him. After he's already been, hurt. He also books a match with Cena and Punk in a tag match against Ziggler and Swagger. So that match starts immediately. Swagger and Ziggler come out. They stand on the apron with Vicky, and Ziggler cuts a promo on Punk saying, you don't need to worry about Laurinaitis. You need to worry about me because I've beat you 3 times this past month. I don't need Laurinaitis to screw you for me to get the win. I can beat you all on my own, and at the Royal Rumble, I will be the new champion. They give the mic to Swagger, and he just says, Cena, you're going to pay for what you did. You're dead meat. And I am just astonished that all these years Jack Swagger has been with his company. I mean, he's been there for a while now. He still can't talk. He still cannot cut a promo. I can't believe it. It's sad, really. I mean, I like Jack Swagger. He's a great wrestler. He's a legit badass. Kind of like Kurt Angle. And it's just, he cannot talk. It's bad for Jack Swagger. So anyway, they have the match. This was a pretty good match. Cena and Punk, they work as a team together. At one point, Ziggler actually hits the ropes, but then he stops and does like a strut and tags in Swagger, who runs in, gets hit with a fisherman suplex by Cena, and then Cena does this weird, horrible zombie-like strut. I don't know what that was. It was pretty bizarre. At another point, Cena actually gets beat up by Ziggler, who hits him with 7 elbow drops and then goes into his sit-up routine, kind of like Scott Steiner in the push-ups. And I guess that's his new thing. But Cena's actually able to recover. Swagger's tagged in. He's holding Cena back. Who's trying to tag in Punk. so he catches him just before he makes the tag. Then Cena turns around, hits him with the attitude adjustment, hits Punk with the hot tag. Punk comes in, he's beating up Ziggler. He's just destroying him. He's attacking him. He's fresh. At one point, Cena comes in to attack Swagger. They brawl on the outside. Swagger goes for the ankle lock. Cena reverses it into the STFU. John Laurinaitis stands on the apron. Punk's going for the elbow drop onto Ziggler. Laurinaitis gets on the apron, distracts him. Punk jumps down. They have a little confrontation. Ziggler gets behind him, hits the roll-up, holds the tights for the win. So the heels get the win. They pulled the tights to get it, but they still got it. And it's just continuing the fact that Laurinaitis will screw Punk over at the Royal Rumble. So they're just kind of beating it into your heads at this point. The next segment is Chris Jericho, and it is the highlight reel. So obviously everybody's thinking, well, he has to talk for this. So Jericho comes out, and he's teasing the crowd again. He's doing the cheers thing. The crowd's not really buying into it. I think there was some boos. Some people still cheered for him. He's begging for boos at this point, but some people are still... I mean, it's Chris Jericho. He's in their town. They probably are excited to see him. He hasn't been on TV in a while, so it's definitely a hard thing to pull off, but damn it if he isn't trying. So he's doing the teasing. He goes backstage and he comes out with one of those big t-shirt guns that fire t-shirts into the crowd. And he's teasing the crowd, which side am I going to shoot the shirt at? Who wants it? He puts it down. He never does fire a shirt into the crowd. So he never gives them what they want. Then he just turns on the highlight reel and it plays this short little montage of his initial arrival into WWE, all his returns, everything like that. And once it's over, he grabs the mic and he's telling the crowd to, shh, be quiet. And then he actually does talk, and all he says is, this Sunday at the Royal Rumble, the world as you know it will never be the same. Or it'll be the end of the world as you know it. Which is basically what all those promos have been saying these past, well, I guess it was December and January. They were airing those promos talking about someone was coming and it would be the end of the world as you know it. So there's still a lot of mysteries to the Chris Jericho angle. They haven't said what those promos had to do with anything yet. He still hasn't really talked. That's all he said. So I assume he's going to be in the Royal Rumble. I actually pick him to win it, but I think it's probably a toss-up between him and Orton. I really don't want Randy Orton to win the Royal Rumble. I have heard that's something they were thinking of doing. I mean, I would rather not see that. He's already won it once. And just another title run for him just bores me. I mean, he's a good wrestler. It's been done. We've seen it. It's like Cena with the title. We've seen it a ton of times. It brings nothing new to it. So I'm hoping Jericho wins and they build up a feud with him and CM Punk, who I have heard is who they want him to be feuding with. So a WrestleMania match with Jericho versus Punk for the title, that sounds much better. They show a clip of some Royal Rumble stats, like how many pounds of guys have been in the Royal Rumbles in the past, stuff like that. Then backstage, it's Mick Foley talking to Zack Ryder and Eve. He says, I've wrestled Kane, I've tagged with Kane, and he may seem like a monster, but he's still a human and you can do this. Eve tells Zack Ryder that he shouldn't be wrestling him. Even though he's medically cleared, he shouldn't take the chance. Cena comes up and says, Ryder, I want you to know I have your back. And Zack Ryder says, no, I don't want you to get involved. I want to get a rematch for the U.S. title. So please don't get involved. So the Zack Ryder-Kane match starts. It's Falls Count Anywhere. And as you can imagine, the match starts off, Zack Ryder tries to attack Kane, but he just destroys him. He just beats the crap out of Zack Ryder this entire match, throws him outside. Then he just basically, because Zack Ryder's ribs are taped up and he's been hurt, he just goes after the ribs the whole time, grabs him, does the running, holding the guy and running into the pole on the outside gimmick. He does that a couple times, throws him in the stairs, just working over the back area. Throws him into the crowd. They brawl in the crowd for a while, throwing him into equipment. Zack Ryder at one point does hit him in the back with a briefcase, but Kane just goes right back to demolishing him. They brawl up onto the entranceway, and he throws him into that big metal WWE thing they have sitting up there. Zack Ryder still kicks out. He's still trying to fight. Kane is just destroying him, but he's still trying to kick out. And the announcers do play that up. They do say, Zack Ryder's really courageous for even kicking out of this and trying to survive. So they do make him look pretty strong. Like, even though the odds are stacked against him, he's still trying. So that was good. But eventually Kane hits this choke slam, and Zack Ryder goes through the stage. Like, he doesn't go off the stage like they usually do. He goes through the stage. And, they make it sound like Kane just threw him straight to hell, like onto a bed of nails or something. So the announcers are freaking out. Eve is freaking out. Kane starts to stalk Eve. And as he's halfway down the ramp, John Cena comes out. Kane looks at him and just takes off through the crowd. Cena's looking at Zack Ryder. Eve is crying. They basically stretcher him out. They wrap him up in so many damn straps, he looks like a mummy. I've never seen a stretcher like this. Like, he is wrapped up completely. And they take him and they put him in an ambulance. Cena and Eve are back there with him. Eve blames Cena, says this was all your fault. You're the reason this happened. She walks away, and Cena just stares into the camera and gives this weird, creepy face, like he looks like the Incredible Hulk or something. He's just staring directly at the camera and just giving this weird look. It's pretty bizarre. The next match is Jinder Mahal versus Sheamus. Again, with the Jinder Mahal. I don't get it, but Wade Barrett comes out and does commentary. That was at least entertaining. I really like Wade Barrett. He was funny. He basically just says, he's going to win the Rumble. And he says that Randy Orton is supposed to be on Friday Night SmackDown. And if he shows up, he will throw him down more stairs. So that was pretty cool. Sheamus beats Jinder Mahal with a brogue kick. Clean. Middle of the ring. I hope that is the end of this feud, and Jinder Mahal doesn't try to attack him again from behind on SmackDown or something. Just let this go. Jinder Mahal is not over. No one cares. Sheamus beating him does not make Sheamus look strong, because everybody knows Jinder Mahal sucks. He's a jobber. And it's completely irrelevant at this point. It's like Sheamus, it's maybe slightly above Sheamus out there beating up JTG or Tyson Kidd. Like, that's it. It's basically just a jobber squash match. So I hope this feud is over and we can move on now. Backstage is The Miz. And he's cutting a promo about how anyone he's ever been in a tag team with who has crossed him has been destroyed. The Big Show, Morrison, R-Truth. He says they either end up with a 45-second title reign, like the Big Show, or they get fired, like Morrison. He doesn't say their names, but, it's Morrison. And that he's going to destroy R-Truth, and he's the number one superstar of all time. Truth comes up. He's wearing a goofy lab coat, saying he's some fake made-up name, market researcher, and that The Miz is right. He is number one, but he's the number one whiner. He's the number one annoying, and the number one jackass. So it's just goofy comedy. Laurinaitis comes out and they're yelling at each other, and he says, "You guys, I'm trying to prepare for my match. You got to keep it down." And they keep yelling at each other. So he says, "I'm gonna book a match. The two of you, the loser gets the number one spot at the Royal Rumble." And everybody knows you don't want to be number one at the Royal Rumble, so that's the stipulation. The next match is Brodus Clay. He comes out for some reason. I guess because he attacked Regal last on SmackDown. Regal is on commentary. Brodus Clay comes out and does his entrance. He kind of screws up the entrance. He can't get his pants all the way off for the big pyro spot at the end. But he's wrestling Heath Slater. Regal's talking about him on commentary, saying he was crushed under all that fat or something like that. Quick match. Brodus Clay squashes Heath Slater, and that's it. Regal does nothing. I thought maybe this is the start of an angle. Brodus is going to start feuding with Regal, but Regal does nothing. He doesn't interfere or anything like that. Brodus doesn't even acknowledge him, and that was it. The fans actually didn't seem to be that into Brodus Clay this week. Now, I was never into the Brodus Clay gimmick. I know my friends love it, but I thought he should have came back and been like a big Van Vader type badass guy and just destroy people, squash them. Build him up into kind of another Mark Henry guy, which would be perfect since Mark Henry's still kind of hurt and they could use Brodus Clay instead. But he comes back and he's doing this goofy dancing, and it looks like it's already starting to wear thin. I mean, the crowd did not seem to be that into it. He's done this 5 times now. He's done it twice. This is the 3rd time on Raw, and 2 SmackDowns he's done the same gimmick. And I think they could still pull something off with it, maybe sell some merchandise or something. But he's got to start wrestling real guys, real threats. So far he's only beat jobbers. The first time he beat Kurt Hawkins, then he beat Tyson Kidd, then it was JTG, then he did a dance-off where he attacked Regal, and then tonight he beat Heath Slater. No one cares about any of those guys. I mean, Regal was funny, but he's not even on the active roster. So Brodus Clay really needs to beat someone of note for the fans to actually care about this gimmick. Because I think if they don't do something, it's going to die. I mean, there's only so many times you can see that intro. Nothing changes, and it's the same intro every week. So you got to give us something new. The Miz vs. Truth match starts. King and Cole actually say on commentary that only 2 people have ever won the Royal Rumble at spot number 1 and made it all the way to the end. And those 2 people are Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit, but they don't mention the names, obviously, because they don't like to bring up Chris Benoit on TV, so I kind of thought that was a little funny. I'm surprised they even said 2 of them. But this was a pretty good match, actually. I really liked this match, and Truth took a nasty spot at one point during it. Miz gives him a slingshot where he lands on the ropes on his stomach, and while Truth is standing on the apron, Miz does a charging running spear into his ribs, and Truth just jumps back and lands directly onto his face and stomach on the outside, and this looked nasty. Truth hits his finisher, gets the win. Miz is your number 1 entrant at the Royal Rumble. The commentators say we have breaking news on Zack Ryder. Apparently Zack Ryder has a broken back. I have no idea what they're going to do with this. I mean, how fast can a guy come back from that to wrestling? Like, when will he ever be medically cleared? A broken back? Like, I don't see how they're going to do this. What the point was in? Like, what was the point of this? Like, the guy's over, he's selling a lot of merchandise, and they have to take him off TV, I guess. And if it's to make Kane look like a monster to fight Cena, then that's a complete waste, because the only reason Cena is fighting Kane is filler until they can start promoting the WrestleMania match of him versus Rock. They're just using Kane to fill space, to give Cena something to do. So they're gonna kill Zack Ryder for that? I don't know. Load of crap. We'll see what happens. Anyway, John Laurinaitis is backstage getting ready for his match. David Otunga comes up and has a letter. He says it's urgent, it can't wait. They read it, and they cut to commercial. When they come back, Punk's coming out to the ring. He's doing his intro. Then Laurinaitis comes out with Otunga, and he says, I don't want to read this, but I have to. I have to let everyone know what's going on. So he has David Otunga read this letter, and apparently because of his past actions over the last few weeks as Raw GM, and because of him saying that he's going to screw Punk at the Royal Rumble, that the board of directors is putting him under review. And that next Monday on Raw, John Laurinaitis will have to answer to the COO, who is Triple H, and that Triple H will either tell him that he can continue in his GM duties or that he's fired. So Punk's excited, and he says, all this means is I get to kick your teeth down your throat, and then I get to watch you get fired. So it's basically kind of a handicap, like John Laurinaitis can't screw Punk now because he's under review, and if he screws Punk now, then he'll definitely be fired. So it's kind of a way to guarantee that he won't get screwed at the Rumble, but, there's still that doubt, like, will Laurinaitis screw him? So Laurinaitis says, no, I will not get fired. This was a wake-up call. I am sorry for my actions. I'm sorry to the universe. I'm sorry to you, Punk. And this was a wake-up call I needed. I was never going to screw you over at the Royal Rumble. I just said that because you made fun of me. And Laurinaitis is just such a great heel. He's awesome. Punk says, well, you've just been acting, like an ass, basically. You said Foley couldn't be in the Rumble, and Laurinaitis says Foley is in the Rumble. So that was noteworthy. That should be entertaining. And he says, I hope Triple H learned one thing from his father-in-law, and he does the "you're fired" gimmick, and like Vince McMahon always says, the "you're fired." And he says, I hope you have to hear that. And he still wants to wrestle him, but Laurinaitis says, under these circumstances, I can't wrestle, but I have a replacement, Otunga. Otunga immediately attacks Punk. He's going to town on him, beating him up. And Punk eventually gets the better of him, puts him in an Anaconda Vice. Then he stands up and stares at Laurinaitis. So Otunga's on the ground. He's hurt. Laurinaitis is alone. Punk picks him up for a GTS, and he hits the GTS. This was horrible looking. He picks Laurinaitis up for this move, and Laurinaitis just lays on his shoulders like he's planking. That's the best way to describe it, is he's planking on his shoulders. Because he doesn't struggle. He doesn't try and get free. He's just laying there with this weird look in his eyes. Punk hits the GTS, and that's it. But it just looked really awkward. If you go back and watch the segment, you'll see what I'm talking about. He just kind of picks Laurinaitis up, and he just lays on top of him. No struggle, no nothing. And it's kind of bizarre. Punk's standing over top of Laurinaitis, and Dolph Ziggler runs into the ring and hits the zigzag, and that's it. Show goes off the air. So we get a few things set up. The big angle is the fact that Laurinaitis' job could be in jeopardy, and Triple H will possibly fire him next Monday on Raw, depending on the actions at the Royal Rumble. And we also had Chris Jericho, finally say he's going to be at the Rumble, so that was pretty interesting. It wasn't a bad show. I like this Raw, and I've definitely seen worse, so I can't really complain. Kind of would have liked a little bit more for a go-home show, but they still have SmackDown. They can still set some angles up for SmackDown, but right now that's the show. That's your Royal Rumble go-home show. Now, a little bit of news in wrestling. I'm sure everybody probably already knows this, but for anyone who doesn't, Evan Bourne was suspended again, apparently for smoking that spice stuff, synthetic weed or whatever it is, and he is gone for 2 months this time. He's got a 60-day suspension, which is the reason they took the belts off him and Kofi and put them on Primo and Epico so quick. They did it at a house show, which I don't think has happened since 2003, is what I read. So, I mean, that's pretty bad. And Evan Bourne said on Twitter that we're our own worst enemies. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know if he wants to be fired and wants to go back to Ring of Honor or maybe wants to go to TNA or something, but man, that is the wrong way to go about things. In 2 months, I mean, that doesn't just screw him over, that screws over Kofi too, so that's kind of a bad thing to do, but it is what it is. Randy Orton is supposed to be on SmackDown. He was actually at a house show last night and was supposed to be on Raw, but they changed their minds at the last second, so they probably pulled him from that. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not at SmackDown and they save him as a surprise entrant at the Royal Rumble to pop the crowd. I could see that happening, but you never know. So he could be at SmackDown. They could change their minds. It's kind of hard to give anything definite when the company changes their minds so often. In TNA, I think Mr. Anderson may come back on Thursday. I know he's been off TV for a long time, but he was recently at a TNA house show, and he was sporting just brown hair. He's not doing the blonde hair thing anymore. So I'm not exactly sure their taping schedule, if they've already taped this week's, but I would expect to see Mr. Anderson back on TNA very soon. And other big news is apparently Chikara has invaded Ring of Honor. And I think this is awesome. I love little interpromotional feuds. It was during a Briscoe Brothers match. They were wrestling, I believe, Jigsaw and Hallowicked when other Chikara guys got involved and kind of screwed the Briscoes out of the match. So all these Chikara guys are in the ring cutting a promo on the Briscoes and Ring of Honor, and they set up a tag match with Hallowicked and Jigsaw versus the Briscoe brothers, and they're going to do a double pay-per-view type deal where it's Chikara in the afternoon and then the Ring of Honor show at night. And I hope they go somewhere cool with this because I think it's a good gimmick. I haven't got to see much Chikara, but I've heard it's awesome, and what little bit I have seen, I think it could be cool. Characters look cool. So it could definitely be interesting. I mean, it has some good comedy and some good wrestling. So I really like to see Ring of Honor versus Chikara, and I think it's a pretty cool little invasion angle they're doing. Well, that's all I have for tonight, but I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I hope everybody can subscribe to me and watch my other videos. I will be back definitely Thursday night for the TNA Impact review, and then I'll do Friday Night SmackDown. I might possibly do a prediction show on what I think is going to happen at the Royal Rumble, but I may just add that to the SmackDown show review. But I will be doing all those things this weekend, and then I'll also review Ring of Honor TV on Saturday night, and I will be back Sunday night to review the Royal Rumble. So I have a lot of shows coming up. I hope everybody likes them and can subscribe. And I appreciate everybody who's watched these and has subscribed to me. Thank you, and I'll see you again later. Bye.